critical that they look at the data. So here's an example of one of the case vignettes that we came up with, and it's not so much saving a life, but it illustrates a couple points, clinical as well as technical, which is the reason I like it. And it is that an elderly male presented to his primary care physician, or PCP, for a routine visit. At that visit, he was due for a prostate exam. But prior to performing the exam, his PCP checked TV motion and saw that the patient had an allergy to latex, which incidentally was documented in 2 inpatient EMRs. The patient was spared substantial discomfort, and the doctor and the institution were spared significant embarrassment. And the reason I bring that up is our staff went to the trouble of entering this data not once but not twice. And shame on us if we can't get that information to the point of care when it's needed to prevent this patient's substantial discomfort and prevent our physicians substantial embarrassment. So that was a minor, we might have saved the patient's life. It's conceivable he could have had anaphylaxis due to a latex allergy due to a rubber glove during the prostate exam, but although it's not our best save in terms of life, it also illustrates the fact that our interoperability solution helps us with redundant data entry and has great potential in that regard, and it also brings information to the point of care where it's most desperately needed. So with that, I think we have another break here for questions while we take the poll, if you'd like.
Sure. Well, we have the poll, and also while you're completing the poll, if you do have any questions, we do have a Q&A time at the end of our time today. So please feel free to submit those questions using the question chat box. But the question here in the poll is, have you started to address the problem of integration? And there are three responses here. Yes, we are in the planning process. Yes, we have an initiative in place. Or no, we have not started to address integration yet. So looks like we've got around half the audience has voted. And actually we're at a dead heat, 33% across the board for each of these 3 responses. So Bill, we'll give this a couple more minutes here, and then we'll make the results available to everybody.
Okay, great. So shall I proceed?
Well, why don't we hold off for a second? We've got around 60% of people. So if you haven't had a chance to vote yet, please vote now. Okay, Bill, I'm going to close this and make the results available to everybody. Okay. So let's see what people said. So it looks like it's pretty close across the board here. Most do have an initiative in place. So do these results surprise you?
If I were surprised at anything, I would be surprised at the 32% yes. I think a lot of organizations are addressing a lot of challenges, and I already sort of viewed it as a luxury at UPMC that we were able to address this challenge as early as we were. However, with meaningful use criteria now requiring it, perhaps it's not quite as surprising. Maybe the no, 32% no, is more surprising at that point.
Well, I'm going to hide this, and you can jump right back in.
Okay, great. So now I'm going to shift gears and talk about the technical challenge of semantics and how it benefited our interoperability efforts in the early stages of the project. And so there's a lot of talk about semantics, and people hear it as a buzzword, and they don't really always understand what it means. So another quick poll we have here is just to see what people's impressions are of semantics and whether it's important to their efforts.
Sure. So I've launched the poll. If you could vote now. So the question is, the semantic part of interoperability is critical. And so if you could identify if you strongly agree, or neutral to it, you disagree, or strongly disagree. So it looks like, Bill, we have an overwhelming response that most people strongly agree that it is a critical part of interoperability. Let's just give a couple more seconds to give people a chance to vote. Okay. So we got the majority of people have voted. I'm going to close the poll and I'm going to share the results. So 69% of people strongly agree that semantics is an important part of interoperability.
Okay, well, hopefully the 10% of you that were neutral or disagree, I'll convince otherwise, and the rest of you, I'll give you a lot of detail around what we accomplished and what the benefits of it were and how we did it. So we found we did not at the outset of this project realize that the semantics could help us with information overload. So as you start to integrate data from across the enterprise, you start to have a mountain of information, and then you have information avalanches down the sides of that mountain, and clinicians can just get overwhelmed and even just stop looking if they're overloaded with information because they're under significant and severe time pressures in the clinical environments. We also realized that semantics could help us develop more clinically relevant displays, which also speaks to information overload, but I'm going to talk about another approach to information overload as well as clinically relevant displays, so I wanted to call it out separately. And also with the pilot project I mentioned earlier, we're actually taking outpatient medicines or outpatient medication records from Epic and putting them into the staging area for medication reconciliation in Cerner as a pilot project. And there's a number of other reasons it's important, and I'll mention at least one more of those as we go through. So this is a simple illustration of the problem. If you want to know what substance the patient has an allergy to, in Cerner, Cerner codifies that as a 3 for the penicillin class of antibiotics. And sometimes Cerner won't even send us a code in the allergy records, so sometimes we get free text entries. Such as penicillins or PCN family or PCN. And the reason for the PCN is that's the universal medical abbreviation for penicillin, and that's how clinicians really want to enter a penicillin allergy because it's fast and it's a universally recognized abbreviation, and it's an abbreviation that's institutionally and JCO approved, and it does not suffer any confusion with any other abbreviations. However, Epic uses the code 141 for penicillin class drug allergy. So if you're pulling allergy records in from both systems, penicillin allergy in Cerner will be coded as a 3, and Epic it'll be coded as a 141. And unless you tell the computer that 3 in Cerner equals 141 in Epic for allergens, you won't be able to do the appropriate drug allergy checking during decision support. If you want to look at how many patients retrospectively got penicillin drugs that had a penicillin allergy, you won't be able to compare across inpatient, outpatient settings, or you won't be able to compare across your whole enterprise how often that happened unless you assert to the computer the equivalence of those two codes. What that looks like in the user interface is the following. So here we have a penicillin record from one location, and these are demo screens because we didn't want to share real patient data for obvious reasons. And here's another penicillin allergy record from the same organization but from a different system and documented by a different physician. And you can see that we have multiple pages of allergies. We have 3 pages of allergy records for this patient. And it's all because we have similar redundancies for latex and erythromycin and adhesive tape. And we don't have these allergies grouped semantically according to drug class or allergen class. When we do that, we suddenly reduce 3 pages of hypersensitivity conditions in one patient to 6 rows of information. So from 3 pages of information to 3 rows of information. And you can see we have 4 records of penicillin allergy, 7 records of latex allergy, 9 records of erythromycin, 8 of adhesive tape. So you can imagine, even as you start to get into health information exchange environments, as you start out, you're going to have allergy records in everybody's systems, and you're going to have this is not an unreasonable number of data exchange partners for the typical health information